the arrival of the pandemic in 2020, the share of young people who were neither in employment, education, or training, and we refer to them as NEETs, rose to 23.3%, reaching the highest level since we began having records in 2005. Young people may see their labor market opportunities and outcomes deteriorate. Also in the longer term, particularly as young people have faced multidimensional crises with interruptions in education and training, and many young people have withdrawn from the labor market altogether.
Let's speak to Kee Beom Kim in Geneva. He's one of the authors of the report and is a macroeconomic and employment specialist at the International Labour Office. Thanks so much for joining us on this news hour. Besides the COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine, what are the other factors that have contributed to high youth unemployment, especially in the Middle East?
Well, first, happy International Youth Day, and thank you very much for having me on the show. So I think a number of developments are coming together to create a sense of uncertainty and fragility. These, of course, include the lingering impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, supply chain disruptions, and of course, geopolitical tensions, which have in part led to price spikes, including that of food, of energy, and adverse financing conditions in developing countries. So as a consequence, international organizations have lowered economic forecasts for this year, and this is actually not good news for young people because their prospects in the labor market are more sensitive to fluctuations in the business cycle than are adults. And so when we look at prospects, going forward, we expect youth unemployment rates in higher income countries to return to their pre-pandemic levels this year. On the other hand, in lower income countries, we don't expect that to happen at least until next year. And in that sense, I think the countries in the Middle East will fall more in those countries that we don't expect youth unemployment levels to return to their pre-pandemic levels until at least next year. And I think a number of factors play in this, contribute to that. Of course, one aspect is, of course, some political uncertainty in the region. Others is that, there's fast-growing population of young people in the region, and in some ways, a lack of economic diversification that leads to less absorption of young people in the labor market.
And it's young women who are facing the biggest obstacles here. Just over a quarter of young women will have jobs this year compared to about 40% of young men. What does this mean for the future of these women?
Absolutely. I think when we look at a number of labor market indicators by gender, we see that there are large gender gaps, whether it's in the rates of participation of young women, whether it's in terms of youth unemployment rates, and even in terms of pay. So I think, and during the COVID-19 pandemic, also in some socioeconomic settings, we saw, for example, that girls and young women were the first to be withdrawn from school and the last to return to education. And so this, of course, has a very negative implications on gender inequality in the labor market. And so what is really needed as are policies that seek to address that first by valuing the work that young women do. For example, many young women are engaged in the care economy, and also in making sure that we facilitate access to higher productivity and higher paying jobs for young women.
Kee Beom Kim, appreciate you unpacking that for us, live to us there from Geneva.